Hello, my lovely people. Today we're going to be doing something a little bit different. We're going to be breaking down and finding all those sneaky little Easter eggs in the new Joker trailer. Upon watching the trailer, I was really amused with the constant references to Batman, along with the continuous comedic classic Easter eggs. If you didn't know, I'm a huge fan of Charlie Chaplin. I love him oh so very much. I love me a little bit of slapstick comedy. So it was really interesting to see the correlation between comedy and tragedy and how it played out throughout this whole trailer. I'd also like to mention that before we start, I have made a reaction to this trailer, and if you want to watch it, for your convenience, it's actually linked down below. The first scene is a zoom-in wide shot of Gotham City, in particular Gotham Central Hospital. We have an over-the-shoulder shot of a therapist. This happens to be Arthur's therapist, and if we look closely at her badge, we see that her name is Deborah Kane. Bruce Wayne's mother is Martha Wayne, but her maiden name is Kane. So she's probably a part of the Kane family, who is a prominent family within Gotham. She could also possibly be related to Kate Kane, also known as Batwoman. Interesting little Easter egg right there. We then see a wide point of view shot of Gotham City, and it's derelict and quite disgusting. It's important to note that the scene is quite dark, and Arthur pretty much constantly seems to be alone. Due to the state of the streets, I'd be comfortable with saying that this is a low socioeconomic part of Gotham City. Maybe Burnside or Bury if we're going to refer back to the comic books.
My mother always tells me to smile and put on a happy face.
So the next line for me is particularly interesting. He says, "My mother always told me to smile and put on a happy face." I think this goes back to the tragedy and comedy. We look at old school comics such as Richard Pryor, who's my personal favourite, or we can go back and just look at the life of Robin Williams, and their lives were shrouded with depression. I think to truly know how to make people happy, you have to feel real sadness, and that's really unfortunate, but I think it's true. So in the next scene, we see a two-person shot of Arthur and his mother. He's bathing her here. Leads me to assume that he's probably her caretaker. He doesn't seem bothered by this. I find that pretty interesting. Juxtaposed to this scene is the next scene where we see Arthur hunched over in a distressed sort of position, and then sitting in a dimly lit room alone on a table. I think this further illustrates how lonely he truly feels. It's interesting to see how dark all of these scenes seem to be and how truly depressed he must feel. I think that is shown quite well with just the lighting in this scene. He then goes on to say,
She told me I had a purpose to bring laughter and joy to the world.
So the next scene is of Arthur's notebook. It's interesting to see how his writing starts out pretty neat, and gradually, as he becomes unhinged, it gets a little bit messier. Next to the notebook, we see a vial of pills and a pile of bills. That rhymes. I'm on fire today. I don't know what's going on. If we look closely at his joke book, it says the worst part of having mental illness is people expecting you to behave as if you don't. In the next scene, we see him holding up a sign advertising a closing down sale for a music store. He's then approached by a group of hooligans who proceed to attack him, knock him down with his sign. He follows them and they beat him. He is again on the floor, hunched over, alone in another dark scene. We hear a voiceover of Arthur's voice saying,
Is it just me? Or is it getting crazier out there?
We see the next scene. It's another shot of Arthur hunched over in an awkward position with a massive bruise on his back from the beating he probably just received from these hooligans. I love that word, by the way. And he's either trying to pull something apart or fix something. I'm not quite sure. But this could be a reflection of how he feels about the broken city, whether he's trying to pull it apart or put it back together. Cue in one of my favourite things about this trailer, the song. The song instrumental is written in 1936 for modern times by Charlie Chaplin. In 1954, John Turner and Jeffrey Parsons then wrote lyrics, and in this particular rendition, it was sung by Jimmy Barnett, and to be honest, it's one of my favourites. I think tragedy and comedy are massive aspects of this trailer, and if this song doesn't pull all of that together, I don't know what will. We then see a scene where he's dancing with his mother. It's again dimly lit, like all the previous scenes have been.
Smile, though your heart is aching. Smile.
If we look closely at the couch, there is a pillow, which could indicate that maybe Arthur is sleeping on the couch. A further indication of poverty, in my opinion. But the more interesting part of this scene is what is seen on the TV. We have another Easter egg. The first name on the screen is Ben De La Torre, and he's one of the travel coordinators for the film. The next name down is Will Limbert, one of the production secretaries, and I think it's so funny that they've placed those names on the TV just for us to find and figure out. I think that's so cool. I think it's important to note here that the only time you see Arthur Flex's character happy at all is when he's with his mother or with Zazie Beetz' character, Sophie Dumont. I think she's either a love interest or a friend of his. I'm not quite sure yet. If you have more information about that, leave it down below. I'd love to hear what you think.
Smile, even though it's breaking.
We see the introduction of Arthur's character and Sophie. They seem to have a nice relationship. But what's more interesting is what's outside. And I'm not talking about the 50 million bags of rubbish that are throughout Gotham City. I'm talking about the sign on the left-hand side of your screen. And it's Jerome Avenue. If you didn't know and you don't watch Gotham, in Gotham, that Joker, his name's Jerome. So I think that's an interesting choice of a street name, considering I do think it's a nod to the character in Gotham. We see Arthur walking into Arkham State Hospital, also known as Elizabeth Arkham Asylum for the Criminally Insane, or just Arkham Asylum for the Criminally Insane. I think here they're being a little bit nice by calling it Arkham State Hospital. As soon as he enters the hospital, the front desk clerk doesn't seem like he likes him very much. It seems like everywhere Arthur goes, sorrow, grief, and darkness follows him. Like I've said, all his scenes have been shrouded in an immense amount of darkness. All of them are poorly lit and lonely. They feel lonely. When you're watching this trailer, I feel like you can't help but feel lonely.
Clouds in the sky.
Arthur then walks into an elevator where we see a police officer, a man tied to a bed, and a nurse wearing a skirt. No, he's probably wearing pants. Or is it a skirt? Could be a skirt. Is it a skirt or is it pants? Is a nurse in a skirt? Okay, we're gonna get over this. We're moving past it now. Arthur's then sitting at a comedy club, yet again, alone, in the dark, with the only lights visible through the dark red lamps in the background. Poorly lit scene. And we finally hear the Joker's laugh.
If you smile to your fear and
Over the top
sorrow.
of this scene, we have some of the most fitting music for this whole trailer. And it says, smile, even if your heart is breaking. Like I said, dimly lit scene, forced laughter. Could this be any more fitting? I'd just like to say that if Arthur's not being beaten by people in this trailer, or sitting with his mother or a therapist or with Sophie, he generally seems quite alone. The scenes are all shrouded in darkness. I have to do this. Shrouded in darkness. I had to. But they are. I think that's pretty evident throughout. Over the top of the next scene, we hear the music and it says, "Smile over the fear and sorrow."
Sorrow, smile, and maybe tomorrow.
We see him applying makeup. This scene then cuts to a close-up of his face, where he quite literally forces a smile with his fingers in his mouth. The next scene is of Arthur on a train. He is laughing hysterically at nothing, alone again. He's then approached by a new group of idiots who proceed to beat him. This scene quickly cuts to another scene of Arthur running through a tunnel with a nosebleed that he has gotten from his previous beating from the idiots. I'm assuming that he's running through this tunnel to get away from law enforcement.
What's so funny? Freak!
He has the same nosebleed in the next scene where he's dancing while standing in front of a mirror. So I think these scenes are after one another in the movie.
Gotham's lost its way.
I do believe that this scene here is the first time we see Arthur turning into the Joker. The next scene is of a hall called Wayne Hall. Wonder who Wayne is. Couldn't put my finger on it. Just couldn't tell ya. And on the front of this hall is plastered images of Charlie Chaplin, which leads me to believe that this is probably an exhibition for Charlie. My man. Yes, he is. If we look outside at the crowd, there are people, there's a person actually, not people, holding a sign of a clown, which is the beginning of the Joker's support team, I think. We then see Arthur being thrown out of the exhibition. Not quite sure why. If you know why, comment section down below for you. The next scene, he's standing in his house, dancing around with a gun in his hand, which is pretty telling of his mental state, if you were to ask me. If we look at Joaquin Phoenix, he has a particular way of contorting his body in a disturbing fashion. If we look at the previous scenes where he's hunched over in an awkward kind of position with all his bones poking out, and then we see this scene where he's standing upright, dancing around with his stomach sucked in. It's just a disturbing visual of his contorted body. I think this does add a lot to the scenes. I know it did for me. We now see an over-the-shoulder shot of Arthur, or the Joker at this point, watching the television. And on the television, it's actually Bruce Wayne's father, Thomas Wayne. And he says,
Would do something that cold-blooded. Someone who hides behind a mask.
I do think that this is a little bit ironic, considering that his son is Bruce Wayne and his son ends up being Batman, who wears a mask all the damn time. Very, very funny there, guys. Very funny. Happen to be police. The next scene is of the Joker running away from a group of men who are police officers. This is made clear because one of them is wearing a badge. This group of men who are police officers are then mobbed by a group of citizens who all support the Joker, and we can see that through their attire. They're all wearing Joker masks. I think now we have an understanding that Arthur resents people with money. We see him walking on a property, and this property is the Wayne Manor. He then approaches a young boy, who is Bruce Wayne, and sticks his fingers in his mouth, pretty sure that's child abuse, and forces him to smile. Somebody call the police. Like I mentioned in my trailer reaction, I do think the age gap is quite big. I don't see how Batman would fight a decrepit, old, arthritis-ridden Joker. So if you have any theories down below, I love when you let me know what's going on because I'm confused. He finds himself through the violence, and you see him here dancing in front of a well-lit window, which is something we haven't seen throughout the whole trailer. Everything's been quite dark. How many times have I said that? If anyone can count them and let me know, that would be cool. But it's a well-lit scene for the first time. It's quickly cut to, I think, an older scene in the movie where he bangs his head against the glass. He's wearing his old clown outfit here, and that's why I think the scene is dark. I think when he turns into the Joker or finally evolves into the Joker, the scenes will have a lot more light. He then says, "I used to think my life is a tragedy, but it's actually a comedy." Really weird, but I told you, tragedy and comedy, I told you, it's the same, and his tragedy is his comedy. Joker. Hi. We then see the Joker just chillaxing with his legs up on the table, having a cigarette, about to go on to the Murray Franklin TV show. I gotta say, I do love me a little bit of De Niro. Interestingly enough, this is another nod to classic comedy. This is a reference to a movie called King of Comedy, made in 1982, directed by Patrick Swayze. This is starring a young De Niro, where he also plays a TV host. The next scene, we see the Joker running into a car, or is the car running into him? Again, ironically enough, even though he's being hit by a car, the scene is very well lit because he is the Joker and not Arthur.
It's a comedy.
And now we see the full evolution of the Joker. Arthur seems to have gotten his hands on a little bit of green hair dye and he's dyeing his hair. And ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to introduce you to the final product, the Joker. And here he's walking down a very well lit corridor with flowers in his hand. Could it get any more authentic? And we're back at one of the first settings of the trailer. The same alleyway with the stairs. He's a lot happier. The man's tap dancing. It's a very nice day. It's sunny. So it's questionable that he got all his confidence from possibly murdering people or just really finding himself. But you can see it really. They've done a great job through the lighting here. And just the coloration of the scenes has completely changed. Just like his outlook on life, it looks like. So really interesting trailer. I thoroughly enjoyed it. It's aesthetically amazing. And finally, the closing scene is of the Joker in an elevator again. I'm not sure exactly where the elevator is, but the doors are closing and he's smiling. We see the Joker smiling. And that's it. Alright, my lovely people, I know you're going to tell me what I missed and what I forgot to mention down below, and I love you for it. This trailer was just so intense. I can't believe how much work probably went into it. The correlation between the music and the trailer was sensational. I do think it's going to be a very dark movie, and it's going to change our perspective of who the Joker really is. Even though this is a standalone film and not related to any other Joker in any previous movie, I do think it's going to still change how we look at the Joker as a whole. One of the best parts about the Joker himself is how mysterious he is. What happens when we remove the veil and he's not so mysterious? I'm so excited to be able to have made this video for you guys. Definitely, if you liked it, make sure you give it a thumbs up. Surprisingly, a lot of hard work goes into these breakdowns. You really have to watch the trailer over and over again. And at 3 a.m. in the morning, that's not necessarily what you want to do. I do want to continue to make these for you, so your feedback would be sensationally helpful. If you haven't already subscribed, make sure you go down and you press that little subscribe button so we can all run together. If you didn't already know, I'm also active on other social medias such as Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. If you'd like to go follow me there, I'd love to have you. But until next time, my absolutely incredible, sensational human beings, I love you all so much, and I'll see you all later. Bye.